Well, back in the days, I would play a little theme music. Had a show called The Morning Cup. I just ain't in the mood to be going to go find the theme music. But it's a pretty interesting show. Alex T. Alex T. What it do, Alex T? Alex T, was you that rich donator that contacted me years ago that wanted to keep your identity sealed? You wanted to give me $50,000? I can't remember where that guy is at. I had this rich dude. He was like, my kid is popular, and I can't be letting people know who I am on this YouTube thing. He'd be mad at me. I can't remember if that's you. But I know you're rich, though. Now, let's get into this show. Let me make sure my mic is working. Mic is working. Now, y'all know Pitt is always against the grain. Just don't never act right. Oh, we're going to have to say a little bit about Tommy, too. He's a special guest over here. So we're going to mix him in somewhere. But for now, we're going to deal with ADOS. If you don't know what ADOS is, it is the American. I repeat, the Americans who are descendants of slavery. Now that kind of brings to mind Doublespeak, a popular book over here on the Pit Boss channel. And doublespeak are words that distract or mislead, for a simple definition. And if there's any of you who don't quite understand that, I'll go pull up the definition by William Lutz, who wrote the dictionary doublespeak. And we want to start off with this title. ADOS is a distraction. Now I'm going to deal with why. Hold on. Okay. My phone going to be ringing off the hook as I do this show because I got different shit going on, and I do have like an hour where there's nothing else I could do, but they gonna hit me. So we're gonna deal with these fundamentals of why is ADOS a distraction. Well, if you've been following along with my program and what I've been doing over here, hold on. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So now, God, man, these people ain't gonna stop hitting me. I'm just gonna not pay attention. How about that? I just forget the real business. I need to school my YouTube crowd. Shit, man, if y'all only knew how cold it is over here. I got me a hot cup, morning cup. So I do have some good audio for y'all who favor ADOS. But before I play the audio, I want to explain. Oh man, hold up. Hold up. Damn, my goddamn killer is running wild outside. I'm gonna let him run wild. He might run away. Shit. You never know. Tommy might come over and try to steal him. Hold on real quick. Crazy. I had to go get him because he was bucking. All right, welcome to the show. Let's get it cracking. Let me pull my thoughts together because I just got all kind of shit going on here. Okay, I got it. I got it. Let me pull this up. So I have a clip. I want you to understand something on how this clip play out. You can always guarantee that in today's modern time, on the news, if CNN is favorable towards a subject, that subject is going to be democratic progressiveness, or in other words, socialism. That means that whatever the argument is, over there at CNN, over there with ADOS, over there with the black Democrats, it's going to always be socialism in current day politics. It doesn't matter what it is. If it doesn't lead to socialism, they won't be pushing it. Thus the distraction. But let me first say this, because I don't want y'all to think that Pit Boss is sitting here acting as though black folks aren't owed something. This is why the word is doublespeak, because initially when you hear it, the American descendants of slavery want reparations. That's what they want. It sounds like a logical fallacy. Absolutely. They deserve something from the people they slaved for. So I would agree in the terms that, do you think black people are owed anything? Absolutely. Absolutely. But when you come to a logical conversation about, well, who exactly do we owe? Oh, we run into 1,000 problems. Give you an example. There's a white candidate, I forgot her name, but she was claiming that she was an indigenous, because she had a drop of Indian blood 80 generations ago. Now, just imagine that the government decided that they would give slaves, descendants of slaves, a check. All they got to do is prove that a member of their family had been enslaved. Do you know how many white folks would come up with the nigga in their family? Hey, my great-great-granddaddy got raped. My great-great-grandmother got raped by the white man. You'd be like, you look white. You look just like your great. It doesn't matter. My grandmother was a slave. It would run into all kind of problems. The money that would be intended for the righteous people, they would get squandered out of getting any money. They would come up with reasons why this person can get a check, this person can't get a check. You would have Mexicans, illegal immigrants over here talking about they had some African blood in them from Mexico, but some kind of way they need a check. Because you wouldn't be able to prove if his great-great-grandfather was an African-American slave or a Mexican slave. It would be just straight chaos on who we gonna pay. That's one of the first distractions. It would go on forever until they rendered that check so low where you're gonna get $750 from the government. No, $400 for 400 years. Everybody gonna get $400 for 400 years. So just trying to figure out who would actually get paid is a super goddamn distraction. It'd be hard to tell. Everybody be running around trying to get a DNA test. And then the scammers would find a way to get in there. They would find a way to get in there. And get a cut of that mud, bud. Cut of that mud. Then some of you indigenous so-called black people, couple of you Hebrew Israelites, y'all wouldn't get nothing. All you niggas who claim that slavery didn't really happen in America, the Dane Calloway crew, y'all wouldn't get nothing. Nothing. You understand? Nothing. Because you wasn't in slavery, according to y'all. That argument is ridiculous. But that's not even the biggest plight with the distraction. Everything about ADOS rides on the hinges that they could get a Democratic progressive into office, and then they would have to change the House and the Senate to majority socialists. And they are actually trying to do that. We're going to play some audio about that. So you need a socialist president first, because Donald Trump ain't going to give you a dime. I'm going to tell you right now. Don't even go over there asking him about no welfare check. That ain't what he do. That ain't why he here. He not the president for you for that. If your punk ass want to get you an LLC, if you want to do some business overseas, if you want to come up out of poverty with your own bootstraps, Donald Trump's your guy. But if you begging, Donald Trump don't want to hear that shit. Call him racist. Say what you want. Feel how you want to feel. But he's not your president for ADOS distraction, reparations distraction. He's not the president for you. So that means you're going to need a Kamala Harris. You're going to need a Stacey Abrams. You're going to need Barack Obama's wife or one of Barack Obama's daughters. You're going to have to pull a nigga out the hat who's rolling with democratic socialism. In other words, communism, Marxism. They'll be willing to give you something. It ain't going to be quite what you want. I don't give a damn if you win the argument. But here's the problem. You're not, I repeat, you are not going to have a Democratic president in the next election. You can't even get one to tell us what the fuck are you fighting for? What will you do when you go in the White House? I'm going to tax the rich. What the fuck are you talking about? They swimming in the swamp, and Donald Trump is draining the swamp. Now, let me let a more professional address the ADOS. This is a CNN puppet. Now, understand that the argument is solid. It's nothing bad about what's being said about reparations. But this, let me also mention, the reparations argument has been around since 1865, decade for decade, for decade for decade. It's always been pushed by the Democrat socialists. It got foiled. Black folks at the time who could have really fought for reparations decided to go build Black Wall Street instead. Now we sit and cry, we need to build another Black Wall Street. So you went and got your financial guru, Jay Morrison, to build you a Tulsa, Oklahoma fund. He robbed you for $9 million. You ain't upset about that. The SEC looking for him right now. They want to check them books. So you don't build a Black Wall Street because the government gives you a reparations check. No. You build a Black Wall Street because you have went out, skilled yourself up, mastered the STEM, and took whatever you had and built yourself up by the bootstrap. That's how you build Black Wall Street. You're never going to build a Black Wall Street waiting on the government to hand out land and a check. It ain't going to happen. He's just going to take it from you because you're going to be worse off than the South Africans after they take over South Africa, who don't have no skill set to run a country, no skill set to build a nation. You might as well just be giving $1 million to a bunch of fifth graders. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? Well, let's listen to the Democratic Socialist agenda of distracting Black folks into begging for reparations that you might not get. You might have a better chance in 2024. But in 2020, the vision is clear. In 2020, the vision is clear. We rolling with capitalism and we dominating. Now let's listen to audio. Hold on. Wait, what happened? Oh. What the hell? Hold on, be strong. Audio check. Okay. Here we go. Oh, man. Always got audio problems. Don't fear. Hi. Let me see. Make sure y'all can hear me. Let me make sure you can hear me. Yo, can you hear me? Somebody put a thumbs up. I see my audio button working, but I don't know if y'all can hear me. I'm assuming you can hear me because I see a bunch of people chiming in. Okay, let me figure out why this audio ain't working over here. Everything's working in my ear. Uh-oh, I see what the problem is. Who that creeping in my window? Wow, it ain't nobody there. Uh-oh. Hold on, be strong. When it's on, it's on. Hold on. And be strong. And when it's on, it's on. Damn. I stay with a problem. I need a $500 right now in my chat, or I'm turning off the show. Tommy do that shit and get $1,500. Okay. Wait a minute. I don't got power. No, I do got power there. Oh, I really got to find my power button because something's about to go wrong. Uh-oh. 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 All right. Now, shit should be working. Uh-oh. Hold on, y'all. I don't know what the hell went down, but I'm having major malfunction over here in the grain. Gripping on the grain over here. Boom.
There are levels of that suffering, you know? And so sometimes white people, it does block a white person because you go white privilege. And
hold on. Okay. Shit. Damn. It's rough over here when you self-funded. When you got to fund the program by yourself. And you still got to pay the bills. And you still got to ball out. And you still got to dip off to Las Vegas. You still got to go buy a fresh line of clothes. And you got to build a business. Whew. It's rough. I need to get me an ADOS check around this motherfucker boy. Let me tell you. I need me an ADOS.
Before we move on, anything you want?
If you niggas do win, I'm going to get my check. All right, so here we go get into that.
You guys have any questions before we move on? Anything you want to chat about? Are we good? Yes, sir?
Do you think that reparations should just go to one group, or shouldn't target people that are in the same kind of socioeconomic group? Because
that's an interesting question. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are white people that have been disenfranchised recently.
Recently is the key. Recently is the key.
The country deindustrialized, right? So a lot of people in manufacturing jobs and stuff
right. But so to your question, I think you have to understand what the word reparations means first. So reparations, you are repairing something that you have broken. You are paying for something that you were supposed to pay for. I'm not saying that there aren't people living in America today who are suffering and are going through pain and strife because of what's happening when it comes to the machines taking jobs, factories becoming industrialized, etc. But reparations is a specific conversation about a specific time in America, and that is Black people were slaves. You know what I mean? I've even heard people say oh, but there were some of the Irish who were indentured. Yeah, let's slavery. Look at the numbers, look at the time, look at the level of work. You could not work toward your freedom. For most Black people in America, this was a time when you lived and died as a slave. And so that's what reparations is about. And so I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a completely separate conversation that needs to be had about the now. Because if you are not careful, what you then do is you combine everybody's suffering into the same bowl, and you make it seem like all injustices have the same weighting, and they don't. Just like crimes, theft isn't the same as murder. We don't try them the same way. And as much as there is a white person who's suffering today, I feel for anybody who's suffering, because I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to suffer. I didn't come from a wealthy family. We struggled when I was growing up, but I also understand that there are levels of that suffering. And so sometimes white people, it does block a white person because you go white privilege, and the person goes, I'm poor and I'm white. Where's the privilege? White people are I wish I could activate my white privilege. I wish I could do it right now. White privilege, give me something. I get that. I get that. Trust me, I get it. It is hard to accept that you have benefits because of the color of your skin if you cannot see the benefits that you have. But the thing I try to explain to a person is, think of it more like golf. Don't think of it as privilege, then think of it like a handicap. Right? In golf, they acknowledge that you are in a position where you need so many advantages to be competitive in the game, right? So what they say is you have a handicap of 15, so that means you're going to be hitting from this tee and you get more chances to get the ball in because we understand the position you're in. And if you're a Black person in America, from slavery, from day one, the number of injustices that have held Black people back in America amount to an insurmountable, you look at Black people's freedom, you look at Black people's land, just land alone. The amount of wealth you can acquire over time if you own land is exponential, because you have the land, you have the fact that you can borrow based on the land, you have the fact that you can use the money that you have borrowed to grow more wealth, you can use it to grow your family's wealth. Just taking that away from Black people alone is crippling them. And so you combine that with slavery, and then you look at Jim Crow laws. You didn't let black people in America live in the areas that they wanted to live in. They couldn't get loans from the banks that they wanted to get loans from. And then on top of that, when they started getting the loans from American banks were found to be giving them higher interest rates when in fact they were the same risk as many of the other races that they were giving loans to. So when you combine all of those things, I think it's safe to say that black Americans have a conversation that they need to be having with the United States. Doesn't involve me, doesn't involve white people, it's like, yo, American government, meet the black people. That's it. Have that conversation.
Now, that was a great argument. Can't disagree with nothing he said. It's solid. Problem is, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And if you think it's going to happen, then you think that the Democrats are going to win the presidency. You think Kamala Harris is going to hopscotch and pop lock her way into the White House. This is what you think. Now, that was a man paid to deliver puppet news to you. He's not an intellectual who would have any intellectual solid foundation of research where he understood the circumstance. So let's listen to someone who does have this type of background and education. Mr. Thomas Sowell.
Subject. I have in my home an entire bookcase of nothing things but books about slavery in various parts of the world and various times of history. And the sad fact is that slavery has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere, yes, but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery, it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth. And between and cross hauling, as they say in the railroads, because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that put together. I know, but nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them. Here we have intellectuals who can imagine a different history from the rest of the world, even though it's so similar to the rest of the world.
Now, that's Thomas Sowell. And I doubt that ADOS has an individual who's prepared to have a discussion with Thomas Sowell about reparations. I mean, you're just going to be hard pressed. You're going to be hard pressed thinking that you're going to get a guy who's going to be able to explain. Here's another problem with the argument. Doug done already said that the Democrats have shot it down. If you run up against Trump and your main lead point is going to be reparations, he going to tell you, listen here, beggar. He going to call you a beggar, number one. A socialist, number two, because in order to move forward with reparations, the government is going to have to take somebody's wealth in order to pay you. That's the distribution of wealth. That's what socialism is. Government controlling wealth and distributing it more fairly. So they say. So they say. Now, the main distraction in this, if you was to get a socialist democratic politician to push this for you, is you're going to have to convince white people that they need to reach in their pocket in what we call taxes and distribute some of this money. Allocate billions of dollars for all of the niggas that are aborting their children, killing each other out there in the hood, selling dope, and a couple of them who are just politicians. Could you imagine these rich black people standing in line for their ADOS check? I'm a descendant of slave, get my check. How much money can you receive where you will feel satisfied for the reparation? 50,000, 100,000, $1 million? What could I give you where you feel like, yo, I'm doing pretty good? Government broke me off a Kit Kat bar, and I'm doing pretty good now. And then once you get it, don't blow it, nigga. Don't go to the strip club like Umar. Don't smoke up lines of coke like Sarah Sutansetti. Don't go buy you a Lamborghini like Polite. Don't get a big ass mansion with no furniture in it like Tommy. Better build you a business like Pit Boss. Better get you some business credit like Pit Boss. Better make sure you got a great credit score like Pit Boss. Don't be like Sarnetta, go get a black Benz and live in a tenement and claim you're going to produce a news truck and never do it. Because after we break you off this, baby, it's over with. We don't want to hear that crying shit no more. Now, there's a bigger problem, though, because you would have to look back at all of the corporate capitalist businesses that profited off slavery and the sub companies that profited. And you would have to determine what they did with this money in modern day, and they all owe. All owe. Because you couldn't just say that the government alone is responsible. You would have to look at the entire mercantile system that stretches all over the world. And you would have to say this company, that company, the steel mill company, the copper company, the sugar cane companies, the cotton companies, different countries owe niggas in America. Because you would only be fighting for Americans' portion. You're not concerned about the niggas in Jamaica, the niggas in Haiti. You're not concerned about them white folks in North Africa that Thomas Sowell just said it was more of them in slavery than it was black people. I don't know how many it was and how long they shit lasted, but you wouldn't be worried about them. You didn't even know about that. Matter of fact, you didn't even know about that. Because you don't really know shit listening to these democratic socialists. You ain't gonna know shit listening to these ADOS YouTube channels. They don't know shit. They're not gonna really lay out the argument. Now, once again, the concept of ADOS formulating a voting block. They don't even have a real voting block. I haven't seen the sign up for the voting rights over here with ADOS. They're not building a voting block. They building YouTube subscribers. They call views on their channel a voting block. They have discussions with each other. Everybody sound like niggas on YouTube. Don't even know what they talking about. What ADOS should have done was polled Black America at what topics could we present both sides, Democrats and Republicans, and champion as a cause that is logical, that is most likely to be accepted and passed as law? Begging just ain't gonna get it. Now, you might be able to convince white folks that you need STEM-based schools closer to black neighborhoods so that black people can acquire the skill set in order to build themselves an economy where they could feel justified for black folks who've been in slavery in America, and now their descendants seem to be prospering from all that work. But reparations can't be your one and only ideology, because this has been a boule argument for 150 years. This has been a socialist communist argument for 150 years. Oh, let me say 170. I'm going all the way back to 1865. And I'm trying to explain to you that since that time, black folks have made millions and millions of miles ahead without this reparations, without this 40 acres and a mule. But yet we still have this group of black people, the beggars, we're going to call them the beggars, who don't want to lift themselves up by their bootstraps, who don't want to take on a do-for-self policy. I mean, life is war. Slavery was war. You lost most of the war, and then you survived. And now that you have survived, what you gonna do with it? You free to a degree that you have the freedom of thought, that you don't live in a 1984 George Orwell's socialist capitalist environment where the government is the socialist and the capitalist, and you're just an economic slave. You don't live in that. I don't want to hear all that shit about, they not handing out loans to blacks. Pit Boss got loans going through the rooftop. I don't know if they know I'm black or not. I just say, hey, y'all, you gave me this little number. You call it a social security card number. Let me write it down on this piece of paper, and I'm going to submit it on the computer, and we're going to see what happened. And boom, bip, bop, all over the place. Here you go, Pit Boss. We see you ain't crying and begging like these goddamn socialist YouTube channels. I didn't need y'all to do what I'm doing. I needed the education that Booker T and Marcus Garvey and capitalists, black Republican capitalists, Christian Republicans gave me through history to let me know, don't be sitting around with the beggars. They not gonna get what they begging for. This is why ADOS becomes a distraction, because you've built black people, descendants of slavery, an argument they can't win. Well, how are you so committed to one goddamn agenda when we got a billion problems? Why don't we attack some of the big shit? But we got homosexuals leading the charge. We got a goddamn socialist agenda leading the charge. And y'all think this is the answer. Prince Marcel asks, What did Booker T say about reparations? Oh my God. You know what I'm going to do? Let's just go read some Booker T quotes. Huh? Let's just go read some Booker T quotes. Because, you know, Booker T wasn't around in the radio days. So it's not so easy to just be grabbing Booker T audio around this thing. It's a little difficult. All right. I got to cancel that out real quick. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties around this thing today. Hold on. Be strong. When it's on, it's on. Okay. Hopefully, I can get the screen share to work because, you know, Payboss ain't investing into this YouTube shit no more. Oh, trust me, though. I've been on air 5 years, maybe longer. I mean, 5 years really going in on the information, but, you know, I've been around. I ain't went nowhere. And I have certainly proven to myself that my information is stronger than theirs and will get me where I need to be quicker than them. With all that goddamn YouTube assistance they have had over the years, they still ain't put shit together. Umar can't open the school. Sarnetta can't get a news van. Tommy ain't brought out the documentary. It's just pitiful. It's pitiful. But if I was to just go live with the shit I'm really doing, y'all be like, well, God damn, Pitt, what you doing? I'll be like, I'm just thinking what my opponent is thinking. And I determine what he thinking, so I'm crafting my way around that. Then I'm applying my science, formulating my technology to completely engulf the engineering that I can supersize my mathematics and leave these niggas 99 light years behind. All my shit consistent. All my shit working. I haven't had one thought not work. Not yet. My shit is strong. I mean, I understand the beggars are going to hate me because I'm not going to sit here and push the charge for begging. That I think that if you sit around begging, ain't shit going to get done. All right. Apparently, my computer is just not going to let me share the screen today. I'm sitting here clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking, but I can't go to the website. And it appears that I'm just going to have to keep reading the same shit I've been reading for I don't know how many years, but it always sounds good. It always sounds good. So, Prince Marcel. Here is the #1 quote by Booker T. And it reads this way. It says that leaders have devoted themselves to politics. Little knowing, it seems that political independence disappears without economic independence. That economic independence is the foundation of political independence. Let me read that again. Leaders have devoted themselves to politics, little knowing it seems that political independence disappears without economic independence. That economic independence is the foundation of political independence. That one line is a nation. If you apply that one line, if you would go for economic independence, individual independence, collective independence. You dig? We already have enough knowledge. We already have enough that we could create something among blacks that we can incorporate with the rest of society to be an economic engine that other groups depend on. Once you got them depending on you in any facet, you got leverage in politics. But we don't depend on democratic socialists for a goddamn thing. They're beggars, and they depend on the government for begging. And when the government feel like listening to you, you'll get you an Obama, and he'll give you an Obama phone. And you can call your mama on her Obama phone. And y'all can have an Obama conversation about your phone all day. You see, they just killed the Obamacare, and y'all mad about that. I got a friend who had to have heart surgery. I brought him on the show one day to talk about Jay Morrison. He had his surgery under the Obamacare. He's like, man, I don't care what they say about Obama, nigga. I love Obama, because he personally benefited from Obamacare. And I had to pay for it. And you had to pay for it. And all of us collectively paid for his heart surgery. Now, I'm not mad, he's my friend. But goddamn, do I got to pay for 854,000 heart surgeries because these niggas out here smoking crack? Because these niggas ain't out here with a health plan? I'm going to go broke, all you sick ass A-dose niggas. All you niggas is sick. I got to pay for all you niggas. None of you niggas want a job. It's ridiculous. So that's not quite the cure, that we just start writing health checks out. That's not exactly the cure. I think that people should be allowed to have any kind of surgeries that they need, and that they get some sort of, loan for that shit with a low interest rate that they could just pay on for the rest of their life. The same way we do education, where you just get all this debt for this low paying job, for this low liberal arts education that you got, and you just paying $20, $30 a month for the rest of your life. That's the way your healthcare should be. Go get you a loan. Everybody should get approved. A 560 credit score. That you ain't paid a goddamn credit card bill in the last 17 months. You should be able to get a loan to have your heart surgery. And let the insurance companies, work y'all niggas for this shit or whatever. But I was a slave. I'm a descendant of a slave. I shouldn't have to be paying for nobody's shit. I built this shit. I shouldn't be having to pay shit. But there has to be another way than Obamacare, because that shit's dead. You know why it's dead? Because it's not constitutional. We live in a constitutional republic. It don't matter if you like it. That's what we live in. This is what makes us great. It's the only document ever written for a country where the country gave the power to the people in history. Nobody ever gave the power to the people. It was always given to a king or a parliament, never to the people. And so because you have the power, you could throw these idiots out of office whenever you feel like. Now they're going to try to put you to sleep so that you don't use your powers. We call that democratic socialism, where the government puts you to sleep so that you don't use your power. We call that shit the fake black power movement, where niggas put you to sleep pushing black socialism and Satanism and blackface. We call that shit the conscious community, where niggas is pushing Satanism and blackface to put your ass to sleep. Because the Constitution was written under a Christian culture, under Christian morals. It used the Bible as a guideline on how to spread justice. and woke niggas up. And then the Satanist was like, wait, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on here? What do these Christians do? Somebody give me a picture of a white Jesus. We got to get these niggas off this Christian shit. And they painted a white Jesus so that you would hate Jesus because you hate the white man. So make Jesus white. So these niggas could hate Jesus. And anything else these niggas like painted white. These niggas like Egypt, paint that white. These niggas like Indians, make them niggas white. Whatever these niggas like, paint it white. These niggas will learn to hate that shit. But Satanism makes Satan black and hairy. Everywhere you look, Satan is black. He looked like a nigga. But Jesus looked white. Ain't this a bitch? Ain't this a bitch? Let's go on further with some Booker T education. Damn, I wish I could share my goddamn screen. These niggas. Oh, wait a minute. Something just happened. My computer finally caught up. Let me see if it's gonna let me share. All right. It's slow, but it's coming around. I don't know what's going on. I should have restarted my shit before I popped off. This goddamn thing. All right, it still ain't working right. We're just gonna keep on with the logo. Smashing y'all with the logo. Let me go read some of the comments real quick. All I see is blue wrenches, so I know ain't nothing really cracking. DJ Black Charm Music. Let me go back up to the top. If ADOS gets reparations, where does that leave the folks who's been saying they were aboriginals? Well, the aboriginals could make a case that they were enslaved as well. Some of them. And it's not about Africans who are descendants of slaves. It's about Americans, people who consider themselves American today, but are descendants of slaves. According to real history, everybody but the white folks was enslaved. So everybody who was a descendant of a slave is ADOS. ADOS just isn't the niggas that came on the boat. ADOS is the niggas that was running around with the gold tip spears that they got from the African trade market before the white man showed up. They can claim to get a check too. They getting double checks because apparently they made some sort of deal with the white man, got them some casinos. They didn't get no big ass check. They got an industry. They said, give us casinos. Now you don't give us a reparation check. Give us some casinos and we'll cut a check to ourselves. So it's a really ridiculous argument. And they're going to focus on it and never let go until they realize they're not going to get a Democratic president. And then they just going to cry about how Trump is racist because he don't want to hear that reparation shit. Trump don't want to hear it. I'm going to tell you right now. He don't want to hear that shit. He want to see a nigga go get a goddamn LLC. Nigga, join the capitalist bandwagon. We about building business. We ain't about begging for shit. How many niggas make 150,000 worried about reparations? This is an argument for these liberal art educated niggas making 40,000 a year, 40 to 60,000 a year. This is an argument for you niggas. You should be worried about why'd you go get a liberal arts education? How come you didn't learn computers? How come you ain't joining the Space Force? Why the hell your ass didn't buy into Facebook and Google and YouTube and all them other stocks? Why your ass living check to check trying to pay a student loan debt? How many of you are 40 years old or over and you still owe more than half of your student loans, but yet you don't make over $50,000 a year? How many of you dumbass niggas is in that position? Because I don't owe a nickel on a student loan. A nickel. I don't owe nobody nothing. Nothing. You get a college education on YouTube. As long as you don't listen to the conscious community or the nigga channels, you can get a college education on YouTube. I'm about to give you a college education right now about the leaders, the white leaders of ADOS. Yeah, because ADOS is a socialist agenda in blackface. So you need a Christian white Republican to bust your bubble about the socialist movement in politics, since black folks want to use white people to push their agenda. I want to reestablish that if you're going to use white folks to push your agenda, go talk to the billionaire white folks to do something for you. Don't go talk to the political white people to pass laws for you. They're only going to enslave you with those laws. They're going to sit there and shake their head. Yeah, we got you. We got you. We going to get you. We got you. And then they're going to enslave you. They're going to enslave your ass, and you're going to be trash when they finish enslaving your ass. Now, let's play a little something.
Essentially.
Hold on, be strong. This is a great video. Now, I wish I could just show it all, but we're going to promote his channel. But first, let's hear what he got to say.
An actress. She's merely playing the part of a New York congresswoman. I know this sounds crazy, but bear with me. In 2017, a group called the Justice Democrats held auditions for potential congressional candidates that they would run on their platform for various congressional seats throughout the country. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's brother, Gabriel, submitted her for the role. Now, I've auditioned for many acting roles in my day. I've also cast many of my own projects. I know how this works. If you find somebody with star power, even if they don't 100% fit the part, you go with it. Obviously, AOC has star power. Just look at her. She's a superstar, the most famous person in Congress, maybe ever. Their casting was perfect. Now, I didn't have to go digging for evidence for this because they freely admit it. They brag about it.
Back in 2016, we put out a call for nominations. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
My brother told me that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like literally working out of a restaurant, and I was like, there's no way.
A casting call. They had a casting call. They cast Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the role of Congresswoman. And they did this so they could promote their own agenda. In this video, I'm going to make 3 very serious accusations against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 1, she did not actually run for Congress. 2, she is a puppet congresswoman. And 3, the people controlling her are very dangerous. The first point I have already made. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not run. She was run. What I mean by that is Alexandria did not take it upon herself to run for Congress. She was used by this group, the Justice Democrats, as a figurehead through which they could gain control of New York's 14th Congressional District House seat. These guys not only scripted and produced AOC's beautiful campaign video, but they organized the entire grassroots campaign effort. They handled all the fundraising, the social media, the get out the vote effort. They turned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into a brand, and they used that brand to take control of that House seat. The people of New York did not elect a Puerto Rican girl from Brooklyn to represent them. They elected an Indian guy from Texas and a white guy from Tennessee. Now, let's move on to my second accusation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a puppet congresswoman. AOC does not make her own policy decisions. She does not decide which way she votes on legislation. She defers completely to her team. This is a serious claim, I know, but consider the following evidence. This is a video of Corbin Trent, one of Alexandria's top advisors, speaking with Zach Alexi, the Saul Alinsky-style strategy expert who organized much of AOC's campaign. Corbin Trent is now Alexandria's top congressional aide.
And what's the stat that we were looking at earlier about
how much people are making?
Yeah, about low-income people and how big of a percent of our
They
society
make
that is.
40%. Well, people that make $19,999 a year or less. So people that make $20,000 a year or less make up right around 40% of Americans, right? So it's
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
Yeah. It's like 60 million people make less than $20,000 a year.
200 million Americans make less than $20,000 a year. That's 40% of this country.
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
That's 40% of this country.
These guys are coaching her. They're scripting everything she says. You notice when she goes off script because she suddenly starts babbling incomprehensibly. The girl in this next clip is now the head of the Justice Democrats. Her name, Alexandra Rojas.
Really, I think a big anchor piece is the Green New Deal and talking about it in a frame of social, racial, and economic justice and a mobilization of our economy and our society at the scale of what we did during World War II.
The Green New Deal, how's that going to be different?
I think what we're calling for is a mobilization of our economy, of our society on the scale that we haven't seen since World War II.
Like, this is the war. This is our World War II.
It's clear that AOC is being coached on absolutely every policy point she makes. And if this is not enough to give you pause, consider that the Green New Deal was drafted in one weekend by her staff. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had zero to do with it. As far as I could find, she wasn't even in the room. Now, this is AOC's landmark legislation proposal. It essentially sums up her entire platform and lays out everything she wants to do in Congress. She didn't even participate in the drafting of the legislation. And again, these people aren't even trying to cover this up. They're proud of it. Again, AOC is a figurehead, a mouthpiece. The congressional seat is being operated behind the scenes. Old interviews show that the Justice Democrats initially declared that they wanted candidates of substance. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a bartender. Now, who is more useful to an evil organization trying to take over Congress? A principled politician who happens to align with their views, or a pawn? A malleable innocent who they can manipulate, somebody completely ignorant of politics who must rely wholly on them to direct all her political positions, statements, and votes. AOC has had enough embarrassing gaffes to know that if she goes off script, it hurts. It can humiliate her. So she has become absolutely dependent on the instruction of her handlers. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez seems like, to anyone unfamiliar with her arrangement, like a bit of an enigma. Most of the time, she seems to bumble along with no apparent idea about what she's doing. But sometimes she says and does things that seem kind of brilliant.
Let's play a lightning round game. I'm going to be the bad guy, which I'm sure half the room would agree with anyway. And I want to get away with as much bad things as possible, ideally to enrich myself and advance my interests, even if that means putting my interests ahead of the American people. The limits that are placed on me as a congresswoman, compared to the executive branch and compared to, say, the President of the United States, would you say that Congress has the same sort of standard of accountability?
In terms of laws that apply to the president,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's just almost no laws at all that apply to the president.
So I'm being held, and every person in this body is being held to a higher ethical standard than the President of the United States.
That's right, because there are some ethics committee rules that apply to you.
And it's already super legal, as we've seen, for me to be a pretty bad guy. So it's even easier for the president of the United States to be one, I would assume.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
This is initially what got me thinking. Who's pulling the strings here? Who's the man behind the curtain? I went to CPAC last week, as some of you know, in Washington, D.C., and I met a lot of people in politics. Occasionally, somebody would bring up AOC. I always took this opportunity to ask one question. Who's really running the show? Who's the brains behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? One guy had an answer. He grabbed his phone, he pulled up a Politico article, and he shoved it into my hand. That's who, he said. The man behind the curtain is this guy, Saikat Chakrabarti. Saikat was AOC's campaign manager and is now her chief of staff. Saikat came out of Harvard and worked as an organizer for the Bernie Sanders campaign. This guy doesn't really have the charisma to run for office himself. He's a little awkward. He might have Asperger's or something like that. He kind of reminds me of Daniel Radcliffe, actually. But don't let his disarming awkwardness fool you. He's been an extremely effective political operative. He's got some terrifying political influences, and he's suspected of committing some severe campaign finance violations. But we'll get into all that later. Saikat Chakrabarti is a sinister character, and hearing more about him later will give you chills. But the man who hired him to head up the Justice Democrats will horrify you, if you can even believe it. The mastermind behind it all, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. Now, this may all sound completely nuts, like a big conspiracy theory, but the Justice Democrats was heavily promoted on the Young Turks. We have video evidence from the inception through into the campaigns.
I think they have maxed out on incompetence. So that is why we must choose a new path. And that is what we embark upon today. What we need to do is take over the Democratic Party. And as Martin Luther King said when he did the Civil Rights Movement, he said he was doing it not just to help African Americans, but to save the soul of America. Here, we're going to try to save the soul of the Democratic Party by boarding the Democratic Party ship and taking it over. How are we going to do that? We're going to run strong progressives. From now on, there will be a new wing of the Democratic Party, and it will be the Justice Democrats. We will seek social justice, economic justice, racial justice, and plain old justice.
Now, you might think, if Cenk wanted influence in government, why didn't he just run? If Saikat Chakrabarti wanted influence in government, I mean, despite his awkwardness, why didn't he run? Why put up AOC? The goals of this group are far grander and far more sinister than simply electing a single congresswoman to office. The goals are to take over the Democratic Party, eventually take control of Congress, and in turn, control the United States. And I know all of this sounds completely insane, but they have expressed their intentions very clearly on camera.
We're going to run hundreds of candidates, and we're going to primary all the establishment Democrats. So we're not going to be like, is it Chuck Schumer? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? No, it's a hard no. But wait a minute now. Are you really going to primary vulnerable Democrats? Yeah, that's the whole point. If in 2018, we don't achieve our grand vision of a wholesale change in 2 years, which is very, very hard. We know that, right? Are you kidding me? If you got 6, let alone 12, let alone 24 people in Congress, you know what would happen in Washington? People would freak the hell out. They'd be like, oh my God, what in the world? These guys that had no money to begin with, no nothing to begin with, just put 24 people in Congress. Look, we want hundreds. We want to replace Congress.
In an article in Politico, one journalist wrote, the group's criteria for picking primary targets is unclear and at times contradictory. Yeah, that's because their goal is not ideological. Their goal is control and power.
Washington doesn't care about beseeching. That's not how it works. They care about power. So primaries are an exercise in power. It's way past time that progressives exercise their power in this country. And that's exactly what these guys are doing.
Waleed Shahid, communications director for the Justice Democrats, has said, you can tacitly support Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, and we still might primary you because there's enough energy in the district to find somebody more charismatic and compelling who is actually going to be a movement builder. No, you know why they might primary you? Because they don't own you. And maybe they found somebody that they think can beat you and that they can control, another AOC. Even Ilhan Omar has said it's quite inappropriate for groups to decide on whether or not somebody deserves to represent their district. Those decisions need to come from the people that we represent. And Ilhan Omar was actually endorsed by the Justice Democrats after she won her primary. The reason more people aren't speaking out against this completely unethical political tactic is that nobody knows it's happening. I mean, you might be asking, if all these guys are so corrupt, if what they're doing is so obviously sinister, why hasn't anybody else reported on it? Their tactics have been extremely different to anything seen in the US before, and that's probably why nobody has copped on to what they're doing yet. Also, mostly what they're doing is annoying Democrats, so conservatives haven't paid all that much attention. The first thing the Justice Democrats did was to try to primary Democratic incumbents. What that means is they would mount primary campaigns against incumbent Democrats, establishment Democrats already in Congress that they didn't like. This, as far as I can tell, was Cenk Uyghur's idea. Basically, the concept was, since many establishment Democrats weren't progressive enough, i.e. socialist, the Justice Democrats would nominate their own candidates to mount a primary challenge. One of the guys they didn't like was Joe Crowley, the guy that they put AOC up against. He had been in Congress for 20 years. Other members of Congress have reached out to AOC to try to convince her to stop primarying establishment candidates, but they're reaching out to the wrong person. AOC does not control the show. They should be trying to convince Saikat Chakrabarti. He's the one AOC takes her orders from. But Cenk and Saikat's plan is not to win a couple of congressional seats. It's total congressional domination.
Look, we want hundreds. We want to replace Congress.
Basically, Cenk's plan in creating the Justice Democrats was to replace all the Democrats in Congress with his own people. Radical leftists, socialists, people who would fall in line with his ideology. And he did it. He actually did it. Now, Cenk comes up with a clever quip from time to time, and he's been able to create a very successful propaganda platform with the Young Turks. But if you've ever watched him, you know he's not exactly a genius. He talks and acts more like a two-bit thug than a political pundit. So how did he do it? He hired geniuses. He brought in the top guys from the Bernie campaign. The Bernie campaign was unprecedented in their grassroots success. They were brilliant. I actually did a lot of research on this, and the keys to their success are equal parts nefarious and creepy, but they are nevertheless very effective. And you got to hand it to Cenk. Bringing these guys on was a brilliant move. Fresh from the Bernie campaign with nothing to do, they must have been itching to tackle a new left-wing political project. So Cenk had this crazy idea. Replace all the Democrats in Congress with his own hand-picked radical left socialists. And he had a brilliant idea. Get the geniuses from the Bernie campaign to do it for him. And they did it. They succeeded. Perhaps not as well as they wanted, but it did work. And that is terrifying. Of the guys that Cenk brought in from the Bernie campaign, the two most important, from what I could find, were Saikat Chakrabarti and Zach Exley. Saikat seems to be the philosophical core of the operation, and Zach Exley is the organizational mastermind. Zach Exley is basically an expert on Saul Alinsky-style community organizing, and both he and Saikat are tech guys. They're very experienced with social media campaigning. Now, they did a great job in 2018, but make no mistake, these guys are not content with their 2018 victory. They're playing a long game here. 2018 was just the beginning. They'll redouble their efforts in 2020, 2022, 2024, at which time I am 100% convinced that they will run somebody for president. For the 2018 elections, the Justice Democrats endorsed 79 candidates. 26 of them won their primary elections. 7 of them won in the general election and are now in Congress. Most of these people's names I can't even pronounce. Raul Grijalva, Ro Khanna, Ayan Presley, Pramila Jayapal, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Of these 7, 3 were chosen through the audition process and are, as far as I can tell, puppets of the Justice Democrats, Saikat Chakrabarti, and Cenk Uyghur. These candidates are Ayan Presley, Rashida Tlaib, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Imagine if they run not 79 candidates, but 200 or 400 or 1,000. At their current rate of success, they would get 88 House seats. And if they improve their techniques, they might get more, including Senate seats. The first screenplay I ever wrote, I was 15. It was about a future in which a megalomaniac was trying to take over the US government. He was trying to do this by installing puppet politicians throughout the US Congress, giving him a majority. And in the climactic point in the movie, his puppet president is also elected. So in my screenplay, this villain effectively gains control over the US government through these politicians who are loyal to him. I never thought that this fiction that I wrote as a teenager would ever become reality. It's completely crazy, but it looks like this has actually started to happen. Cenk Uygur is no longer formally associated with the Justice Democrats or AOC's congressional team, but whether or not he still holds influence over these people is unknown. What is known is that these people are dangerous. Zach Exley is a radical left open borders guy who was once a fellow at the Open Borders Foundation, which is George Soros's organization. And he seems to be the least extreme of these guys. Cenk Uygur calls his organization the Young Turks. The Young Turks is named after a group of Turkish revolutionaries formed in 1911 who slaughtered 1.5 million people in the Armenian genocide. So we know where Cenk's influence is at. Saikat Chakrabarti is influenced by this guy, Subhas Chandra Bose. How do we know this? Because he wears this Che Guevara-style shirt with Subhas Chandra Bose's face on it in most of his videos. That seems like a pretty deliberate choice. At first, I actually thought it was his own face. I was like, why is this guy wearing a shirt with his own face on it? That's crazy narcissistic. But then I figured out it was this Subhas guy. So who is Subhas Chandra Bose? He was the violent complement to the non-violent Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, the legendary Gandhi. Whilst Gandhi was trying to expel the British from India non-violently, this guy was like, no, let's start a war and let's kill them all. Actually, it was worse than that. Much, much, much worse. Subhas called himself a socialist, but he is quoted as saying, our philosophy should be a synthesis between Nazism and communism. Another important thing that we need to recognize about Subhas is that he was an anti-colonialist. Now, we're not super familiar with this political perspective here in the US, but in India, anti-colonialism causes deep resentment to this day. This is explained in the documentary film 2016, Obama's America. In this film, Dinesh D'Souza explains anti-colonialism and shows how these ideas influenced Barack Obama because, and this is the scary part, the United States is founded on colonialism. To the anti-colonialist, the US is an evil empire that colonized North America. The United States is the enemy and is to be fought, is to be resisted, torn down. This is the guy that Saikat Chakrabarti, AOC's chief of staff, wears on his t-shirt, a pro-violence, anti-colonial socialist who dreamed of a Nazi communist government. This is the man behind the curtain. This is the brains behind AOC. It's definitely scarier to me that he's not a congressman, but that he is the man behind the curtain. There is no accountability for the man behind the curtain. If AOC falls from grace, he can just hire another actress. There are no term limits to being the guy behind the curtain. When I got back from CPAC 6 days ago, Saikat Chakrabarti was in the news for the first time ever. I was surprised because I'd never heard of him until I went to Washington. As it turns out, he has been flagged recently for diverting at least $1 million in campaign donations from the political action committee that he was running to shell companies that he set up. At the moment, it's unclear whether he was embezzling the money or just hiding it from FEC oversight. Either way, it looks like he's in trouble. For a guy who claims to be trying to get money and influence out of government, he doesn't seem to mind leveraging those tools himself. You may have heard something about this. What you probably haven't heard about is AOC's sinister living wage rules. So AOC announced a little while ago that she was going to cap her congressional staff's pay at $80,000 so that she could pay her bottom level staff a living wage and her interns $15 per hour. But here's the thing. AOC's living wage rule allows her staff to dodge financial disclosure laws. Under federal law, congressional employees who earn over $126,000 per year must disclose all of the outside money that they earn. Because AOC's top staff will not be making over $126,000 per year, they will not be subject to this law. I wonder who came up with this brilliant scheme, Saikat Chakrabarti. I know it wasn't the bartender. This team of guys who got AOC elected and who are now pulling the strings of her congressional seat declared at the outset that they were trying to bring integrity into government, transparency, to flush out the corruption. Well, it looks like they're trying in every way they possibly can to hide their own activities. They say that sunlight is the best disinfectant. I say it's about time we pulled the curtain all the way back on this particular wizard and all of his friends. Oh, and just remember, the next time you see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's fake. She's a fraud. She's not real. None of her tweets are actually her tweets. None of her speeches are her speeches. Her answers to questions and interviews, she was coached to give those. She's not a real congresswoman. She's an actress. All right, that's it for me. If you like this episode, hit the like button. If you want to see more like this, please subscribe. And if you hate me, you're probably Saikat Chakrabarti or Cenk Uygur, because hopefully I just tore down your evil plot for world domination. Good night.
We have so many. Now, that channel is called Mr. Reagan, spelled R-E-A-G-A-N. He is the conservative Christian right. Once again, this spiritual warfare is a part of the agenda. And once again, Christianity is on the side of righteousness and Satanism is on the left. It is but what it is. Now, you're either a fan of the new Green Deal and the AOC, which is really the ADOS platform. The problem is ADOS is not ran by anybody with any intelligence or any kind of money or any ability to do what Cenk Uygur has done. Put their mentality in somebody's mind and get their ass a seat in Congress. They can't do that part because blacks are inferior according to popular blacks. That you're inferior to whites, so you wouldn't possibly be able to do what all these white folks are doing. And thus, you need to be integrated into the system because without that, you have an inferior mentality. And thus, you need us. And so, our Boule chapter of the black world has decided they will think for us. But luckily, all of us aren't asleep. And we're going to get resistance because we're not about to roll with the Democrat platform this time. We're at a turning point, USA, and we're going in a different direction. Now we're going to let Candace Owens beat y'all up on reparations. I know you can't stand Candace Owens, right? She beats you up. This is why this election is going to be outstanding, because we have black people on both sides. On both sides. Who gonna talk, they talk. On the Democratic side, they're gonna sound like this. Racism, 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 racism. That's how they gonna sound. On the black conservative side, capitalism, capitalism, do for self. Those are going to be the arguments, broken down into subcategories, broken down into other subcategories, and presented to the sheeples who are barely woke enough to mark a box on a voting sheet. Now, let's get it like this.
I'm still amazed at the amount of people who, one, do not understand the concept of private property, and two, do not understand that the...
She's cool, but that ain't who we looking for. That ain't who we looking for. We'll go back to an old classic, something that made her famous.
Black Lives Matter leader just released a list of 10 things white people should give to black people. And I have to say, I haven't been ambitious enough in my letters to Santa. My name is Candace Owens, and you are watching my vlog series, The Myth of the Coon. So a lot of people have been wondering, what does Black Lives Matter want? I mean, to date, it seems like all they've really accomplished is burning down black neighborhoods, pissing off police officers, and ruining...
Now, mind you, Black Lives Matter was ADOS before ADOS. Same concept, ran by homosexuals, socialist agenda, make race the topic. Same concept. They're not that clever. They do not sway far from the talking points. This is the awakening of Candace Owens.
Employment opportunities for Black kids that write on their behalf and get arrested. Fortunately, Chanel Helm, the co-founder of BLM in Louisville, Kentucky, lays it out clearly in a pointed article entitled White People. Here are 10 requests from a Black Lives Matter leader. Personally, I haven't seen a list as colorful since Veruca Salt told Willy Wonka that she wanted the geese to lay gold eggs for Easter. But hey, I'm just here to report the facts. If you are wise, you'll listen to me. Number 1 on her list. Chanel would like white people who have no children to leave their homes to Black or brown families. So like if you worked your entire life to be able to afford a home but forgot to procreate and you're thinking, I'm gonna leave my home to my brother or my sister. No, think again, Whitey. Number 2, she explains that if you inherit a home, so like if your mom died and she left you a house, you should just immediately give it away to a Black or brown family because you will be able to earn that somewhere else down the line in your white privileged life. Her words, not mine. Number 3 is for developers. She wants you guys to build homes and let Black people live in them for free. I don't see any economical issues with that. Number 4, you can afford to downsize, like I don't know, maybe your kids are off to college or something, then she expects you to move out and let a Black family move in, preferably a Black family that comes from generational poverty. I like that one the most because she says preferably an impoverished Black family, but like it doesn't have to be, so you could also move out of your house and give it to a rich Black family. Number 5, I'm gonna read verbatim, which is just white people. If any of the people you intend to leave your property to are racist assholes, change the will. Do it right now. 6, rebudget your monthly so you can donate to Black funds for land purchasing. I mean, I don't know the rest of you, but every time I go to a white person's house and I see that they have HBO, I'm thinking, that's like $25.99 a month that could be going to me. Number 7 is for white women because this is your specialty. Nosy Jenny and meddling Kathy, get a racist fired. Get your boss fired because they racist too. Number 8, she just uses to back up number 7 and she dedicates it to little DICK white men. She wants white women to also get them fired. Number 9, she wants these white girls to address these little DICK white men and if they need to, assault them. Number 10, everybody.
I want today. I want tomorrow. I want to wear my braids in my hair and I don't want to share them.
Here's the thing. Some people might watch this video and think that I'm speaking out against Black people. Actually, that's not true, and it couldn't be more the opposite. What I'm doing here is speaking up for Black people. For the millions of us who do not think like this, who are not this ignorant, who are not this petulant, and who would never list something so low-aiming as the list that this girl presented to the community. It is incumbent upon each and every one of us Black people who are aiming for education and advancement in society by not dwelling on the past, but looking towards our futures to stand up and to say that this is absolutely and utterly reprehensible. Reprehensible not just because of its fantastical element, but because it truly paints a grotesque picture of the African American community. It paints us like hobos and beggars who cannot accomplish anything on our own without sticking our hands out. It is an absolute shame that a woman like this is given a platform to speak, period. The facts are that every race since the beginning of humankind has experienced slavery, and only one of them is asking for reparations from people who didn't enslave them. Are there things that Caucasian people can help us rally for that will help close the gap on some systemic oppressions from the past? Absolutely. Asking them to give up their homes is not one of them. I will not tolerate this depiction of African Americans in the media, and every time I see something as mediocre as this, I will speak out against it. I'd like to wrap this up with a pro fundraising tip. When asking people for money, maybe don't refer to them as meddling Kathys and nosy Jennies and little DICK white men.
So the argument is going to be consistent all the way through the political race. Democrats are going to scream racism, 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 reparations, racism, reparations, racism, all the way down till they lose. Then they're going to cry, this is racist. We didn't win. This is racist. Then on the other side of the argument, black people are going to be screaming, do for your goddamn self, build you some capital, and do for your goddamn self. Quit begging, my nigga. Quit begging. It's pretty much that simple. I could make it more complex for you guys, but then I'm going to go over your head. Now, mind you, Candace Owens man came out around 2016 with her epiphany of a conservative view. But Pit Boss, I got 1,000 videos before that day, before Candace Owens ever awoken to what's really going on. I came right in the door, banging hard that the conscious community was full of ADOS, Black Lives Matter, and Satanism, all wrapped up into one, screaming racism, crying about the white man with no legitimate argument. And so to fix it, I gave you Booker T. Washington, the STEM program, the Bible, and do for yourself. Credit repair, building an LLC, on and on and on. Some of you thought I was just talking. Some of you thought I was just bullshitting. Then I start dropping shit in your face. Then I start taking long trips on your ass. Then they acclaim me of, oh, I'm running up fake credit cards in hotels for 5 months straight. They cried about everything that I did. In the end, it went quite this way. I took down all the super chats. I left up the PayPal. Maybe one of y'all crazy enough to donate to my PayPal. I don't know. But if you do, or if you do not, you can't stop what the fuck I'm doing. Because I'm doing it for myself, by myself. And if you benefit from it, so help you God that you benefited from some shit I'm doing for me. And if you're able to benefit from that, more power to you. If you're not, take your ass on over to Obama and get a phone and call me later, because I got shit to do. In the meantime, and in between time, you work it your way, and I'm going to work it mine.